Now, the US Navy is trying to retrieve pieces of the Chinese balloon shot down off the coast of South Carolina on Saturday. President Biden was briefed about the balloon on Tuesday, and the White House is under pressure over why it was allowed to cross the country in the first place if China was believed to be using it for surveillance. Here's Republican Congressman Dusty Johnson, who sits on the House Select Committee on Competition with China.
I do think the balloon should have been shot down before South Carolina. Now, I'm open to the idea that there are some strategic or operational reasons why the White House didn't act, but the reasons they're giving publicly simply don't make a lot of sense. I'd like to get us into a classified environment where all members of Congress, and particularly those of us on the Select Committee on China, can probe the answers of the White House a little bit more. I think there's more to the story that we haven't been told yet.
Well, let's get more now from our North America correspondent, Nomi Iqbal, who joins us now. Nomi, we heard there Republicans are saying there's more to this story that hasn't been told. Has the White House messaging been a bit muddled?
Well, there has been so much confusion that's come out of this story. So just in the last hour, President Biden spoke and he said, well, I always wanted to shoot this balloon down, but he took the advice from the military. It's worth remembering that this balloon isn't just any balloon. It's like the length of 3 buses. It's the Pentagon officials say it's about 200 feet tall. And the Transport Secretary, Pete Buttigieg, spoke about it today, and he said, look, shooting it down while it was flying over America would have been such a danger in the airspace as well as on the ground. But Republicans have lashed out at President Biden. They're saying, well, why did it take so long? It was adrift for about a week. And they're saying, well, this would never have happened under Donald Trump. It's now emerged that,
well, aren't US officials now briefing that 3 times under the Trump administration a balloon crossed the US, but apparently not for very long, and Trump officials didn't know?
Well, this is the confusion. So now it turns out that these balloons aren't just a one-off, that this has happened, as you say, according to Pentagon officials, 3 times under Trump's administration. Now, Donald Trump has commented on his social media networking site, well, that's not true, this would never have happened under him. His former national security advisor, John Bolton, was asked about it, and he didn't categorically deny it, but he also said he didn't recall it happening during his tenure. Remember, he was fired by Donald Trump. And then, like, as you say, Republicans are saying, well, if there were balloons previously, they didn't last for as long as this one did. But, you know, as you mentioned there, the Navy is recovering the debris, and once they do, that perhaps the Biden administration can find out a little bit more.
All this is happening as the president prepares for his set-piece event, the State of the Union address here in Washington, when he's supposed to lay out his agenda for the coming year. Republicans are calling on him to be honest about the strategic threat with China. What can we expect from the president's speech?
Well, it's like the balloon is the uninvited guest, isn't it, to the State of the Union address. Of course, Biden wants to remind Americans, doesn't he, of his legislative wins, why they voted for him, but the Republicans have seized on this and say that it shows that he's weak on China, that he allowed this alleged spying to go on American soil. I think it will feature heavily in the Republican response to Biden's speech. I think what we can expect from President Biden is that he probably will talk about it, and he might use the balloon as a way of sending that strong message to Beijing that you can't do this in America, whilst also trying to convince the American public and some of those Republicans that he did act swiftly. And also, at the same time, you know, say to Beijing, he shouldn't have done this, but we still want to work with you on things like climate change and the economy and what have you. But Biden's used to an international crisis overshadowing his speech. If you remember last year when he spoke, it came, just 6 days after Russia invaded Ukraine.
Indeed so. Nomi Iqbal, thanks so much for joining us there.